5 p.m. Debate and introduction is interrupted for the public interest debate, and I call the member for Wollondilly.
Speaker. I move that this House, 1, recognises the significant benefits of independent political representation in enhancing democracy, fostering community-based advocacy and ensuring accountability without the constraints of party loyalty. 2, congratulates the independent members of Parliament, including the Speaker, the member for Lake Macquarie, the members for Sydney, Wakehurst, Barwon, Murray, Orange, Wagga Wagga, Pittwater and Wollondilly for their dedicated service to their electorates. 3, notes the key achievements of the independents, such as pushing for balanced planning reforms that protect local communities and environments. 4, acknowledges the role of the crossbench in standing up for reform, acting as the conscience of Parliament and collaborating with government to improve legislation on issues like workers' compensation, health, workforce shortages and energy efficiency. 5, welcomes the diversity of the crossbench, which brings varied perspectives from urban and rural areas, leading to constructive outcomes as highlighted in recent media coverage on topics such as lobbying regulations, gambling reforms and electoral fairness. 6, calls on the government to support and expand opportunities for independent representation, including through fair electoral funding and reforms that level the playing field for community-driven candidates. As the independent member for Wollondilly, I've witnessed firsthand how independents bring a unique vitality to our democracy, a focus on community needs over partisan games, collaboration across divides and a steadfast commitment to reform. Independent representation isn't about upending the system, it's about enhancing it, ensuring that every voice in this House is free to advocate for their electorate without the constraints of party loyalty. It fosters accountability, innovation and better governance, as independents like me work alongside government and opposition to deliver tangible outcomes. In New South Wales, our growth proves that we get results. We come together as a diverse force to stand up for reform and serve as the conscience of Parliament. Getting elected is an extraordinary achievement for anyone. The effort for all of us here in this House is the same, but our pathways are different. Party MPs are in this place after securing the approval to stand by only a few dozen others. They get party backing and they get to use the party brand. They stand protected by their parties, but at the cost of removing individual free voting rights, aside from the rare conscience votes. And I believe there's only been one person cross the floor in this term in the House. The alternative is to stand as an independent like myself, like the Speaker, the member for Lake Macquarie and the members for Sydney, Wakehurst, Barwon, Murray, Orange, Wagga Wagga and Pittwater. We got elected here not to form government. Our interests are only for our own electorate and we are laser focused on what's best for our community. We don't need to worry about breaking ranks, and with this we keep political parties honest. We are needed just as much as the rest of you, and I would argue in today's world we are needed more than ever. Since my election, I've been able to advocate relentlessly, crossing aisles to secure wins that matter to my community. Take the new high school at Wilton, a project stalled for decades under previous party governments. Wilton's exploding with growth, set to have 15,000 residents, yet families were busing kids hours away, straining resources. In my maiden speech, I vowed to fight for it, and by May 25, I stood in this House welcoming the government's commitment to build it. First high school built since 1958. This wasn't party favouritism, it was persistent community-driven advocacy, meetings with ministers, petitions from locals and holding both sides accountable. Previous members bound by party lines couldn't push as hard without risking the anger from the party or the whip. They achieved incremental, pork-barrelled funding, but not the transformative wins we've seen. This week I opened an amazing performing arts building at the Barwon High School. We had a classroom walls reinstalled back in the rebuild of the Picton High School, and their hall that was out of action for 4 years was reopened. I've been vocal in support of balanced growth, critiquing rushed bills that centralise power like the Environmental Planning and Assessment Bill. I highlighted how it would sideline communities drawing from Wollondilly's flood scars and bushfire risk. As an independent, I supported the amendments and held firm for locals, achieving clarifications on bushfire protections that the party MPs couldn't. I've also highlighted the lack of infrastructure to match development, and this called to many amendments, such as the one for the State Infrastructure Contributions Fund that was supported by the government, and we helped fix their bill. Health is another area where independence shines. In February, I called a committee on medical workforce shortages, amplifying Wollondilly's rural doctor crisis. This led to targeted funding boosts for Barwon Hospital upgrades, announced in March 25. Something stalled under prior regimens. And on workers' compensation, I drew on local stories ensuring amendments protecting psychological injury claims. These wins underscore our key benefits. Independents can get more done because our loyalty is solely to our electorates, without party whips telling us which door to walk in, how to vote, where to sit, where we can cross the floor, as I have done on many things. This freedom allows us to be the conscience of Parliament, voting based on evidence, community input and ethics, not caucus dictates. In June 25, the crossbench pushed the government for tougher lobbying regulations, using our balance of power to demand transparency and reduce corruption perceptions. This wasn't opposition for opposition's sake, it was constructive pressure that led to amendments strengthening disclosure rules. This February we braced against the Guardian called a stitch-up on electoral reforms, where independents like myself and the member for Sydney advocated for donation caps that wouldn't crowd out community voices, resulting in fairer rules that preserved access for challengers. Diversity is our strength. We don't agree on it all. The member for Sydney moved 15 amendments on the workers' compensation bill. Meanwhile, rural independents like the member for Murray, the member for water, she championed water rights, and I shared the same concerns and moved a motion against harvestable reductions, resulting in policy reviews that benefited farmers. In hung parliament scenarios, crossbench like us negotiate bill by bill, extracting concessions that improve legislation, such as environmental safeguards in planning bills or health upgrades in regional areas. This isn't adversarial, it's partnership. We've worked with the government on infrastructure like the Picton bypass, securing commitments through joint advocacy. Some things will take time, like train services. My May 25 statement on Wollondilly Southern Highlands overcrowding led to service reviews, and I hope this will ultimately benefit commuters. The point is, Mr Acting Speaker, independent service Parliament's conscience, questioning, refining, ensuring policies serve all, not just party bases. The benefits are clear: more responsive representation, diverse reforms, collaborative governance. In Wollondilly, independence has delivered schools, roads and protections where parties have failed.
The question is the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Manly.
Thank you, Speaker, and I rise to make a contribution on this public interest debate. I could have been the 4th of July, Independence Day. Get it? No. Thanks. I want to acknowledge the motion, and it's an interesting one. I think raises a lot of very important and valid points. I don't know if the people around the state necessarily would see the value in the public interest debate being a congratulatory one for MPs, but nonetheless it's worth recognising and acknowledging. I just want to pick up on a few points. I mean, it does raise concern or questions about this concept of party loyalty, but I think when I contemplate the members of my party in Manly, I mean, they're just as much members of the community that make up the independent community movement, if you will. There are mums and dads and business owners and people that live and participate in surf clubs, Rotary. They are the community and they're the members of my party. And so whilst they choose to sign up to a philosophy and a set of values that they align with and that they support, they too are members of the community. And so I don't think being a member of a party, whether it's Labor, Liberal, Green, or indeed some would argue that the independent movement in many respects is a party, is exclusive to being someone that loves the place that they live in, the community that they live in. Additionally, I think that my seat was once held by independents, and indeed the community and the electors of Manly found it fit to not support those independent members, and every election since I've faced off against an independent, and thankfully and hopefully they will continue into the future, have chosen to back me as a Liberal. I think because they see the work that members of parties do day in, day out for their communities. And again, I don't think that working hard for your community and having them at the heart of what you do as an elected member in this place is exclusive to the independents. That said, I congratulate independents and Greens and anybody that's willing to stand for Parliament. A strong electoral battle is only a good thing. And I've found that over the last couple of elections, having faced off against independents, they have certainly made me work hard for every single vote. They've made me work hard to contemplate the effort and the policy direction and the contribution that all of us have the privilege to deliver as members in this place. I think it's also an interesting public interest debate that it raises the concerns or importance of standing up for reform and collaborating with the government to improve legislation. And we enjoy working with the independents and other members in this place to push the government to apply scrutiny and to make sure that the government is delivering sensible reforms, and where we can work together to improve that, again, that is only a good thing for the people of this state. And ultimately, that's the beauty of the Westminster system, in that it ensures that by having major parties and other participants in this place, that we all work towards delivering good policy and good outcomes for the communities that we represent. But I do say that whilst the member is very welcome to bring forward this public interest debate, hard work, having the community at the fundamental core of why we are in this place, are not exclusive to independent members, or indeed members of the Labor, Liberal or Greens or the Shooters or any member in this place. I think they, for all of us, are at the heart of what we do and why we get up and come to Parliament each and every day and get out there in our communities to work hard. And that is the beauty of the electoral system in this state, and the oldest Parliament in the country that we can all be very proud of participating in. So I note the public interest debate. We look forward to working with the independents for the rest of the term, and indeed when we form government one day, those of you that are still here, we look forward to working with you as well.
Thank you.
The question is the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Barwon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at the outset, I'd like to just acknowledge that everyone that gets elected to this place, whether you're with a party, an independent, a minor party, it's hard work, and it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you get out there and you do the work and you do the legwork. So I don't want to take away from any of that. Mr. Speaker, I was first elected as the member for Barwon in 2019. At the time, my electorate was not doing well. They were still going through the worst drought in European history, with crop failures, water shortages, unlike any in Australian recorded history. But worse still, Barwon had suffered under decades of government underspend and a succession of representatives from major parties who were unable, for whatever reason, and I'm not saying they didn't try, but unable for whatever reason to really look after the electorate of Barwon. Promises might have been made by candidates in an attempt to woo voters, but often those promises were not followed through after a major party once again won the seat. The electorate has never really the electorate was also never really presented with a viable option to a major party. After the 2019 election, constituents ignored these attempts to buy the votes. They felt that a lot of the local concerns were being ignored, and that if they elected a representative from a major party, the elected member might override their needs and concerns if they conflicted with party policy or priorities. Some examples of that: coal seam gas, water security, drought relief, health services, the pulling back of services into major centres, the lack of expenditure on infrastructure, and in a coalition situation, the priorities of a coalition partner might also be a factor. Once elected, I began to work to reverse that neglect. In 2016-17, before I was elected, the electorate-specific funding for Barwon was only $132 million. In 22-23, it had gone up to over $900 million, and in the last budget, it was over $1 billion when you're considering the electorate-specific funding and the multi-electorate funding. While I was once a member of a minor party, the Shooters, Fishers, Farmers, I noticed that as soon as I left that party in December of 22, my dealings with government became much easier. That was under the LNP. I also noticed that voters who were opposed to the party ideology changed camps in 23, giving me their support as an independent candidate. The major benefit of being an independent is that I can never be in opposition. I can never be in opposition. I can walk into the office of a Premier or a state or federal minister and know that there'll be no politics involved. If I have a legitimate, genuine request for something that will benefit my electorate, I'll at least get a receptive ear, and often much more. Electorates like Barwon, which are so diverse and so different from any other electorate, are best served, in my opinion, by an independent who doesn't vote on party lines and who can be more adaptive and flexible. I don't have to go back, Mr. Speaker, to Party HQ if I think something needs to be done. Independents also tend not to be targeted by or influenced by lobbyists, powerful cashed-up interests who are less likely to lobby independents because independents are not spending so much time seeking funds from corporate bodies for policy outcomes. It tends to decentralise the influence in Parliament. Independents can also introduce bills and make amendments to other members' bills. Governments are more willing to give their support to independent bills and amendments because it doesn't threaten government stability. On the contrary, in a minority government, it can help ensure that the government maintains the support of the crossbench. I've successfully passed legislation, created laws, and amended government legislation improving government bills. Bills and amendments introduced by independents, by members who are not partisan, are more objective in my opinion. Opposition bills or amendments to bills can lack objectivity. They are usually populist, introduced with the aim of pointing out flaws in government legislation or destabilising the government by undermining its legislative agenda. I use the example, Mr Speaker, of the months we spent in New South Wales Parliament when we were talking about regional water utilities and the threat of them being sold off. They were never really under threat from private purchase, and it was a poor use of time of the Parliament. Opposition bills are mostly opposed by the government, and they'll be defeated in a vote because the government needs to continue to assert its ability to win votes and maintain public confidence in its stability and its ability to govern. A crossbench with a good proportion of independents, with a government that needs the vote of the crossbench, is a crucial check on government power. It also makes, in my opinion, for a better democracy. Seats represented by independent members can challenge the position of political parties. That's a major problem within parties, where the challenging of party-held positions can really only happen behind closed doors or in a party room meeting. That means constituents will probably never even know that their representative is trying to back in their community. We've seen examples of party members who cross the floor to support their constituents' views being stripped of ministerial portfolios and moved to the back bench. Independents can hold the government to account. They are able to say what needs to be said without fear of being forced to toe a party line. I saw the support from Barwon grow in 2023, much of it from people who liked what I was doing, but they wouldn't vote for me because I was with a party with an ideology. I can see the benefits in a massive and complex electorate like Barwon of being represented by an independent. The numbers don't lie. Across New South Wales, people are liking the idea of independent representation, Mr Speaker. Thank you.
The question is the motion be agreed. I call the member for Davidson.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I speak on the motion of public importance by the member for Wollondilly, and I just want to start my remarks by saying for every single member to get elected to this place, I think is a really tough journey, and I think that's a good thing, because if it wasn't a tough journey, then everyone would do it. And I know that, as the member discussed, that the toughness of the journey may be different depending on if you're in a major party, a minor party, or as an independent. And I know, as a member of a major party, of course, I had to make sure that I ran for my party to win pre-selection, which was tough, and then to run in the general election, which again was tough. So I just want to remark that I think members in here are incredibly resilient, but I think that resilience is really good because you need that to be able to represent and amplify the voice of your community. This chamber is known as the Bear Pit, and I think it's a great name. I host a public speaking competition for Year 5s every single year, and we call it the Bear Pit competition. And it's the Bear Pit because the robust debate that takes place. Now, today you could argue it's the sort of teddy bear pit, but that leads me to one of my great heroes, Teddy Roosevelt, who I think had a really wonderful quote that said, "Speak softly, but carry a big stick." You could argue that's exactly what the crossbench do. They do speak very softly. I can say from time to time I speak very loudly in here. I like to think I also do carry a big stick, but Teddy Roosevelt is certainly a person I look to, and another one of his great quotes is, "It's hard to fail, but worse never to have tried to succeed." So I know every member can definitely relate to that quote as well. Well, the motion today, I think, talks about the importance of multi-partisanship. And it's interesting, when I go out in the community and I talk to members of the community, I actually talk up how we all really get on in this place. And people see the theatre of question time and they think that we continue to have robust debates when we leave the chamber, but in actual fact, we walk out. I've had times where I've had a great debate with another member, and we go out and we give each other a bit of a bear hug, and we say, wasn't that a good debate to have? But I know that every single member in this place is focused on their communities, and I think that's really, really important, that the community focus should always be at the heart of what we do. And I look at other jurisdictions around the world. You look at the UK, for example, you hear these stories that members don't live in their electorates, which is just really quite odd, or they run for their electorates, but they've actually never lived there or been there before, and yet they get elected really easy. And I think it's really important that in New South Wales and in Australia, that, yeah, you do live in your electorate and you do focus your community, and that the community is the focus of everything that you do. I also want to note the kindness of all members in this place, and look, I'll take the opportunity for this motion to talk about the crossbench and the kindness of the crossbench. With Judy, Hannah and I actually met her first in the late 2000s, and when I was working for Barry O'Farrell, and we went out when Judy was the mayor of Wollondilly, arguing for infrastructure and bridges. So I know she's always been focused certainly on her community. And look, I know she ran as a Liberal in the past, and she would have been a great Liberal Member of Parliament as well. But certainly we've had a lot in common talking about the journey and of going through cancer, and all best wishes to your grandson. And on that note, I'll also say I know everyone in the House supports Prue Carr in what she's going through, and we all have we all give best wishes to her. I then look at the member for Barwon. He has a great Ford. I'm a Ford man, Ford Ltd. Important to mention that. Go forward. Phil Donato, I'm co-chairs with Parliamentary Friends of New Zealand, so it's great working with him. I know Helen, she's very passionate, and of course her staffer, Brian, is actually a resident in my community, a constituent, so it's great to talk about David Samaz with him. Joe McGurr, we share praying. We were at the prayer breakfast this morning. That was really wonderful. And of course, I couldn't forget the Greg Piper and Alex Greenwich, member for Sydney, member for Lake Macquarie. And I know that when I worked in the Premier's office, they were members of the crossbench then, and I know that they were advocating most for their communities and talking about legislation. I remember one day briefing Alex, despite us having a huge majority in this House, we still made sure that you were briefed. So I'll leave my remarks there and say thank you to the member for Wollondilly.
Question is the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Wagga Wagga.
Mr Speaker, I want to begin by thanking the member for Wollondilly for bringing this motion to the House. I think it is important to reflect on the advent and the importance of independence and the values that they bring to our parliamentary democracy. So well done to the member for Wollondilly, and can I also say how good it is to have the member for Pittwater here as well, and welcome her contribution to the House as well. I do want to note that. Mr Speaker, in talking this in the House today on this motion, I want to highlight 4 aspects of being independent. They are voice, choice, accountability and collaboration. And I'm going to go through each of those in time, but just remember that: voice, choice, accountability, collaboration. Now, voice. When it comes to independents have the capacity to raise issues that can't be raised for some reason by people in different parties. It's just a fact. If you look over my career, you'll see, for example, I was the first person to talk about the impact of renewable energy infrastructure on communities and the importance of obtaining a social licence for that renewable energy infrastructure. And I remember raising that in the Parliament here, and in fact I do remember attending a forum that you hosted, Mr Deputy Speaker, on that subject. Now, it was a long time. It was a long time before other members of Parliament said anything on that. And it's interesting that now there's an avalanche of criticism of renewable energy infrastructure and concerns being raised. But that subject came up first from me, and I certainly felt like a lone voice, but I was able to raise it because I wasn't held down by party discipline. And if you look at the tobacco legislation that's recently passed, that was myself and the former member for Kiama who brought that in, and the bill that was eventually passed was very, very similar to a bill that I'd got consultation on. It was a good result, but again, it was a question of speaking out before and around party discipline. So that's important. Voice is important. Choice is important. When I first ran as an independent, I ran because I'd been working within the health system for a decade, trying with the community to get a new hospital. And it was pretty clear in the seat where I was that we were not going to get a new hospital because it was regarded as a safe seat. So I said, we've got to change this. We've got to make a difference. Now, I stood, took 6 months off work, supported my family, didn't get elected, but did get 30% of the primary vote. And I think that made a huge difference to the government's focus on the need for a hospital in Wagga. And I was very pleased to see that delivered in the term of the previous government. So voice, and that came about because electors got a choice. And that is absolutely critical to putting pressure on the government. And then there's the issue of accountability. When you're an independent, there's no place to hide. Everyone knows what you voted on what issue. And that means your own personal integrity is always there, but also you have to scrutinise legislation. And that accountability that you bring to legislation is an accountability you also bring to the government. And I think we see that in this Parliament, and we see it in the accountability that the crossbench brings to the government on various parts of legislation, and the need for amendments and changes and new legislation that they bring here. And that brings me to my fourth point, collaboration. The crossbench in this place currently is a broad church. There are people, we agree on a number of things, but frankly, we disagree on a number of things. As again, Mr. Speaker, you and I would be the classic examples of that, disagreeing on certain issues. But the point is, we try to identify common ground and collaborate where we can in a respectful and meaningful way. And I think gambling reforms, health reform, my rural health action plan has had great input from the crossbench, I've got to say, and I've very much appreciated what they've been able to do in that, to assist me with that. And that collaboration is an important model, because then the accountability for legislation, you then take a collaborative approach to the government to keep them accountable. So on those grounds, voice, choice, accountability and collaboration, I think the independents bring an important flavour to the Parliament. We do need parties. The system is built around parties. There's no question about that, and they have their own value. But I believe having a crossbench and independence brings out the best in the parties. Our communities benefit from the diversity and versatility. The Parliament benefits from a broader community-driven contest of ideas, and the state benefits from the innovations that independents can provide and the relationships that we nurture. Governments also benefit from good independent representation, and therefore I think the member for Wollondilly's sensible call for electoral funding and reforms that promote the voices of community members direct to this place is an important consideration, and I certainly support her motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Heffron.
Mr. Acting Speaker, healthy democracy is the cornerstone of Australian society, and the current composition of this House and the spotlight on independent candidates at the last federal election has shown us that independent representation is becoming increasingly prevalent in the political process. This is a minority government. It is often said by newly elected governments that there's a new paradigm and the government will be open, transparent and accountable. But once they take control of the Legislative Assembly, it doesn't last very long, because governments historically have found this House, where government is formed, to be an irritant in the functioning of the executive government. But if you are a minority government, you don't have any choice. Now, this government entered into an agreement with 3 members of this House for confidence and supply. And it's well known that that was the member for Lake Macquarie, the member for Sydney and the member for Wagga. There was no deal done other than, because I was the one that entered into the agreement on behalf of the government, and there was no deal done other than a requirement for there to be stable government and transparent government. There was no other price for confidence and supply. It has been me leading the way to deal with the 9 independent crossbenchers since the Minns government has been in office. And all 9 of them, plus the minority Greens political party, have all sought to hold this government to account. And this government has adhered to what it promised, and that is to be open, transparent and accountable. It has not been difficult to deal with the 9 independent crossbenchers, because each to a person has been honourable, has been intelligent, has fiercely represented their community, but most importantly has been responsible. It is easy for a Member of Parliament who will never themselves be in office and be a part of a government to advocate whatever they like for a cheap headline or for cheap political advantage. None of the 9 independents have ever sought that from this government, and has never sought to work other than in a constructive way with this government, even when we have disagreed. But I just make this point. As I look to those 9 members of the crossbench, each of them are a product of the failure of a major political party. Whether that be the National Party, as I look at the member for Barwon, or member for Orange, or the member for Murray, whether it be the Liberal Party, as I look to the member for Wagga, and the member for Pittwater, and the member for Wakehurst, and the member for Wollondilly, or whether I look to the Labor Party failures when I look to the member for Sydney and the member of Lake Macquarie. If the major political parties don't understand that they are required, even within a political framework, to represent their community and be vocal, be honourable and be constructive, then the reality will be that there will be more independent candidates in this House. And once the major political party fails and quality, honourable independents take those positions, then the ability of the major political parties to be able to take their seats back, because that's the reality of the demographics, becomes really difficult, almost impossible. I mean, I have visited a number of members of the crossbench's seat and worked in their communities, as have, between my ministerial colleagues has probably been to all of them repeatedly. And we know what the work is on the ground. We know the fact that they are communicating with their community. We know that they're not looking for political stunts. They're actually demonstrating to the major political parties that there is a better way forward to represent a community, either inside or outside the party structure, and they're able to be successful without a party machine at their back. It's been a very worthwhile motion to move in this House by the member for Wollondilly, and it is supported by the government.
The member for Pittwater seeks leave to make a contribution. Is leave granted? Leave's granted. Member for Pittwater.
Thank you, Speaker. And I thank the member for Wollondilly for bringing this motion and giving the opportunity for us to reflect on the contributions that independents make to this place and to their communities, as they do in jurisdictions across Australia and around the world. Ultimately, as an independent, I feel that I am, as the independent for Pittwater's voice in Parliament, rather than a party's voice in Pittwater. I'm not distracted by party politics, factions or party lines. And as a community independent, and I note that I'm following the community independent model, which was pioneered by Cathy McGowan at a federal level in the seat of Indi with her kitchen table conversations, effectively heavily engaging in the community to understand what the community wanted out of their representation, to understand the values that they found important, and to reflect on whether the current member of the time reflected the community values. Cathy McGowan found that she felt that the community wasn't being represented and ended up standing herself and winning the seat of Indi, and then replicating and I suppose encouraging other members to do the same in their own electorates, which has been known to become the community independence movement. I do believe independents listen to their community, align with their community values and not the values necessarily of a party, and other members have said how that plays out in Parliament and being able to vote every single time with your community. I note also at a federal level, Zali Stegel in the seat of Warringah, who very much represented her community at a time when she was pioneering policies on climate change, when she felt the representative for Warringah was not doing that. In fact, he was a climate denier. There have also been many independents way before Cathy McGowan, and I think also to Ted Mack, who is an inspiration and maybe the poster child of independence, who was elected in all federal, state and local jurisdictions, and was very much known for his community engagement rejection of parliamentary perks, strong integrity, rejection of vested interests, and advocating for transparency. And I know there are much loved independents in this place who continue to be re-elected time after time, and I'm looking at many of them now, and of course that's the member for Barwon, Wagga, Murray, Sydney, Wakehurst, who I hope will be re-elected, Lake Macquarie and Orange, and of course Wollondilly as well. As other members have said, I do believe independents drive a race to the top, and they make major parties perform better and improve legislation and make good policy better. And I reflect on my own experience even before being elected, when I was a candidate in the first election I ran in and I lost, but I feel I had a win even though I did lose, and that was because I drafted a bill with the Honourable Justin Field, who was a member of the other place at that time, to end offshore oil and gas drilling off the northern beaches and the New South Wales coastline. Within 12 days of releasing that bill, after 12 years in government, the Liberal Party released a copycat of that bill. Fast forward, that was then entered into Parliament by the former member for Pittwater, and then the Labor Party, after it went to inquiry, entered their own bill with substantially the same terms, and that is now legislation. At the time when that bill was announced by the Liberal Party during when I was a candidate, even my daughter said, well, we've already won, because it's all about the policy. And I think that is the value that a lot of independents bring to this place and have done at a federal level, driving reforms, as the member for Wagga said, that sometimes the major parties don't touch. And Speaker, also referencing some of the reforms that you have driven, whether that be voluntary assisted dying, and I saw firsthand recently when the band Lime Cordiale, their father passed away through voluntary assisted dying, and they dedicated and wrote a whole song to it because they found it such a moving experience. Also decriminalising abortion, which I know was pioneered by the member for Sydney also. So these issues, which often aren't touched by major parties, are brought to the Parliament by independents, and either they work collaboratively with major parties to get them through, or as the member for Wagga said, often major parties then adopt those policy positions, and that is the nuance that sometimes doesn't get covered by the media. So I did want to say thank you to the member for Wollondilly for bringing this motion, which is a bit of a love-in for independents, and very gracious for other members to speak about it. But I want to also say that since arriving here, and the member for Davidson stole my line saying the bear pit may as well be called full of teddy bears, the teddy bear pit, because people here have been very, very kind to me, but have demonstrated how they deliver for their electorates and stand for their electorates also.
I thank the member for Pittwater. Before I call the member for Wollondilly in reply, can I also acknowledge that today is the birthday of Lord Mayor Clover Moore, one of the longest serving independents in the Legislative Assembly and my predecessor, and how appropriate it is that we are debating such a motion on the role of independents on Clover's birthday. And so on behalf of the Legislative Assembly, happy birthday, Clover. I call the member for Wollondilly.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the members for Wagga Wagga, Manly, Barwon, Hefferon, Davidson and Pittwater for their contribution to the debate. As we see, we all don't have to agree, and I respect everybody's choice in their respective political parties and factions. I know that they truly represent their electorates, and their electorates are well served by their efforts, and everybody achieves great things despite any party membership. Mr Speaker, it's clear the results have spoken for themselves in Wollondilly. My predecessor, a member who was often quite brash, bit of a joker, not really my thing, but that's okay. The community looked past that and they gave him a go. What loses things in a single term is a lack of effort, and you need to heed the words of the previous member for Wollondilly, Jai, who warned in his final speech, "Our community is the best in the world and it does not owe you anything. You owe them everything. Put them first in your dealings and you will continue to be re-elected." There's not been a day since that I haven't put this into my job and fought for my community and put them first. This fortnight I overtook the highest number of parliamentary contributions for any previous member of Wollondilly in a single term, and the election's still a year and a half away, and with some hard work I might even overtake the combination of 2 terms of the former member Jai. These contributions are about large things that I mentioned before, like planning infrastructure, the bypass and sewer, but they also, for me, importantly about the little things. The effort of having my office open for anyone to come in, have a cup of tea, get a photocopy done, to see a welcome mat outside and a dog ball outside the door where people walking past just stop and have a chat. and it's led to so many requests for assistance. The letters and lobbying has given my residents the chance to see the difference that what an independent can do, and when they're not using their energy ensuring they have numbers for pre-selection or other party politics, they just want to deliver for the community. And independents provide a two-way benefit. We keep this place honest, we deliver more for our community, and I thank all the members for their kindness in this place, and I look forward to the House's support.
The question is the motion be agreed to. All of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.